miserable Glasgow day on the 15th of August. Now, it's perhaps fitting that it is a bit of a miserable day. It's certainly been a miserable time for the SNP's Angus Robertson recently, who has been in the firing line over the release of a photograph of himself with the assistant ambassador for Israel. Now, there's a strange thing going on here. Whilst it's normal for diplomats and senior foreign secretaries to be pictured with one another when they're engaging in any kind of diplomacy or any kind of trade talks, the whole issue of foreign policy is actually devolved to London. So what on earth is Angus Robertson doing talking to any foreign diplomats at all? He doesn't really have a remit to do this in the first place. And was it wise to have a picture released of himself standing next to the junior representative of a state which has been accused of genocide recently? Now, I think the whole topic of this is so toxified, it's a mystery as to why Mr. Robertson thought it appropriate for this picture to actually find its way onto social media in the first place. And of course, it's not the only one either that Mr. Robertson has been pictured with. He also was pictured with Mr. Herzog, the former ambassador for Israel to the United Kingdom. So he has a little bit of a track record here, and it's prompted many commentators on social media to ask exactly who it is that Mr. Robertson is working for, because it appears that he is at least giving the impression that Scotland is complicit in the United Kingdom's support for Israel, which, I mean, let's face it, most of the people in Scotland are appalled by what is going on in Gaza at the moment. And whilst it's perfectly legitimate for a country to try to retaliate when it's been attacked, especially when it's been attacked in such a way as Israel was, and having hostages taken as well, it's perfectly legitimate to go and try to release those. The massive overreaction, military overreaction shown by Israel is vastly out of proportion to the original attack by Hamas. So anyway, I don't want to get too involved in this conversation, but what I would point out is that Mr. Robertson really doesn't have a job in this. He doesn't have a horse in the race, and I question why it was that he was ever associated with any representatives of Israel whatsoever. That should have been the job of the British Foreign Secretary. There's something a bit weird about this. Anyway, moving on, and a little bit off topic because it's still the silly season. There was horror in the British media yesterday when it was discovered by, I think it was 4 universities, who were trying to establish the provenance of what's known as the altar stone at Stonehenge in England, of course. Now, Stonehenge is an interesting place because it is claimed by England to be one of their primary national monuments, and fair enough, it's situated in England. But there is a component here of, shall we say, foreign influence, because most of the major stones that make up the henge itself, the big vertical pillars and the huge massive stones which lie across the top of them, most of those stones actually came from Wales, which begged the question, where did the capstone come from for the altar? Now, the altar stone is not actually visible because it is resting at ground level beneath some other fallen stones in the centre of the henge. However, the research carried out by archaeologists and presumably geologists in these various 4 universities seems to have proved beyond doubt that this stone, this massive altar stone, which I believe weighed something like 16 tons, I believe, it's huge, is not local to England, nor was it actually taken from Wales either. It seems to have been geolocated to an area somewhere around either Orkney or the northeast coast of Scotland. Now, that is a remarkable distance of over 400 miles from the site of the actual henge itself. And it begs the question, how on earth did Neolithic people get such a massive block of stone all the way from the north of Scotland to the south of England? Now, there are various theories about how this was done, but the funniest thing about this is the fact that this caused such outrage and shock amongst the English media, first of all, but also amongst the English archaeologists who were actually trying to discover the provenance of this stone. So it appears that Stonehenge is almost like a microcosm of what is now the United Kingdom, where a lot of the valuable stuff which was necessary to actually construct the henge never came from England at all, but actually came from two Celtic states which are on the same island, i.e. Wales, and now, as we recently found out, from the northeast of Scotland, or possibly even Orkney. The two theories about how the stones got there seem to be either that they were floated, the stone was floated somehow or other down the east coast of Scotland, the east coast of England, and perhaps all the way around the bottom end, if you like, of England through the English Channel, and then across country to its final resting place. But my question is not so much just about how they got it there. I suppose they could have rolled it there on logs 400 miles over many decades to get it there, possibly. But the question was why? Why did the builders of Stonehenge feel it necessary to have that particular type of stone for the altar? And that's a very interesting question indeed, because we can understand maybe why they went to Wales to get the stones to build the henge, because they didn't have anything strong enough or large enough locally where Stonehenge is located to do so. But it's a mystery as to why this altar stone, which is known as, I think it's called a blue stone, if I remember correctly, and it's a form of sandstone which is almost unique to the Orkney and the northeast of Scotland. Why that was selected by Neolithic people for the altar, it obviously has some significance. And I wonder if any of the Neolithic settlements in Orkney have something to do with this. Because Orkney and certainly Shetland have a long history of Neolithic settlement going back thousands of years. And it could well be that Scotland was more of a centre of Neolithic civilization than England was. And perhaps this was Scotland exporting its Neolithic religious ceremonial site to somewhere in England, rather than England doing this itself and bringing the stone to Scotland. So it's a very funny subject, because it really annoys the people of England, and it particularly annoys the British press that Scotland had some role in this. Anyway, I just thought it was amusing, and I guess we'll find out more about it in due course, but at the moment it certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons. Now, talking of cats amongst pigeons brings me to the last topic of today's programme. Many of you have heard me talking about Salvo over the recent years and months, and I've been wondering possibly what Salvo's been up to all this time and what's happened to the case for self-determination. Well, as far as I'm aware at the moment, Salvo has finally engaged senior legal representation, and we're talking somebody, King's Counsel here, that kind of level, who has now been engaged or hired by Salvo to present the case for Scotland's self-determination to the International Court of Justice. Now that means that all of Scotland's historical documents which pertain to its sovereignty and its continued sovereignty, and also to both the forced nature of the Union Treaty, and the fact that Scotland's sovereignty has remained over the last more than 300 years and is still in existence, the fact that we never exercised self-determination to join the Union is one of the founding principles on which our case is built, and also the continuing misunderstandings, misdirections and pure lies that have been spouted by the United Kingdom over many years to the United Nations about Scotland's status need to be cleared up, so that the International Court of Justice can see exactly what Scotland's actual status is as a nation, and give us the right to self-determination, of which we already are entitled to, but to do so officially in a ruling which gives us comfort from the fact that we could then hold a referendum, and it would be perfectly legal, and more importantly, would gain the respect and the acceptance of other nations in the UN. So that is ongoing at the moment, and as far as I understand it, is imminent. So at some point over the next few months, we will hear news of how this case is going at the International Court of Justice. So it's a mix of stories today. Bad news for Angus Robertson, and a bit of a mystery as to why he's even been in these pictures in the first place. And then there's an incredibly funny situation where an altar stone from Scotland has been discovered in Stonehenge, and I really love this. I think it's wonderful to see that Scotland had a huge role in the construction of England's primary Neolithic site. And finally, just to wind up, as I said just a moment ago, the fact that the International Court of Justice will be receiving Scotland's presentation of its case for self-determination at some point in the very near future. Anyway, that's it from Inde-Car today. I hope you keep enjoying these programs. Please try to support me when you can. It's very likely that Inde-Car, in perhaps a slightly new format, will start to make a regular appearance on the Scotland channel. That is currently the subject of talks at the moment with the channel's owner. If that's the case, then you'll be able to find me there, perhaps more easily than you can here. But in the meantime, please keep the faith. If you can afford to donate, I will post another quick donation link on my Facebook page and on X. So at the moment, I could do with about £70 to keep me going just for the next 3 or 4 weeks or so. It's very difficult to keep making these programs and trying to work at the same time and dealing with a big family health crisis at the moment as well, which is taking up a lot of my time. Anyway, thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next program. Bye for now.